So, to the question of the day, do you think the Jubilee government is doing enough to address land ownership problem in the country? You can text us, tweet us, at Sophia Noon, at Katie in Kenya, or at James Smart. We'll be able to get that in the hour of this morning's press. Do you think the Jubilee government is doing enough to address land ownership problems in the country?
Indeed, that is our question today. Even as we get into our discussion this morning, it's all about land, and you can be part of that conversation. Share with us your views on that question. And of course, if you have any questions for our guests who we're just about to introduce, do send them in at Sophia Wanuna, to James Smart. Use the hashtag Morning Express KTN. And joining us in studio this morning is Mohammed Swazuri, who's the chairman of the National Land Commission. We also have Mwenda Makathimo, executive director, Land Development and Governance Institute. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning to you.
And thank you both for joining us today. So we begin with where we are at now. Kenya is 50 years old, celebrating Kenya at 50. And land was definitely one of the driving forces for the colonial fight. When Kenyans went out to fight for their independence, land was at the heart of it, to own their own land. 50 years on, we're still having a conversation that our forefathers had. Why is that? I'll begin with you, Mr. Swazuri.
Land has had many problems throughout history. And in our case here, where we were colonized, the problems were even multiplied. If you recall, before the coming of the foreign colonists here, I don't think there were issues to do with land as much as we know them today. It was maybe border disputes between tribal kingdoms and so on, chiefs and so on. But when an introduction of a new legal system to manage land came, it has taken time for us to acclimatize to that. And this one precipitated by the fact that legislation was unknown to us over land, and the fact that they introduced so many laws to govern land has really created a problem all over this time. Now, what we have seen is an attempt to reform, and reforms have really been undertaken for the last 20 or 25 years in the land sector. But you see, reforms for a sector that has been in controversy for more than 100 years will take some time before we start to see them bearing fruits. Therefore, what we are seeing now is a platform that has started to address the land issues as we have seen them all over time.
All right, your thoughts, sir?
Well, the history is there that set the frameworks and the stage for contestation, especially amongst the citizens, the non-citizens, and the different strata of society in terms of equity in ownership, in terms of access rights, and in terms of use rights also. But several attempts have been made to try to address this problem, and we have since 2009 launched on a land policy framework, and we have the whole new chapter in the Constitution that addresses this. The only challenge is that implementation. Frameworks are coming out well, but the implementation appears to be a bit challenged on the side of either keeping the policy promises tracked systematically, and also financing those attempts that are set in the frameworks, and also the question of interests, given that land is at the center of the political and the power arrangements. So that is where we are at now.
All right, you both talked about attempts have been made, and we've seen numerous reports on the land questions that have come over the years, trying to decipher the real issues behind the problem, and even come up with recommendations, solutions. But as you said, the implementation is the headache. Why is that? Is it the lack of political will? What is really the problem at the heart of we're not seeing movement, but we keep seeing reports, we keep seeing possible solutions?
Okay, I think it is true there have been several bold attempts to address the issue. I think the first attempt was started in 1918 And 1924, 1938, and several of them have had that. Up to the last one of Ndungu Commission, TGRC, all these attempts have been made. If you study all those reports, you'll find that at the end of it, all of them gave recommendations. And these recommendations were not so different. In all of the recommendations, there was a need to identify or create a forum or a body which would address these issues. Now, what has lacked is actually how to implement those recommendations. If we had implemented the recommendations of 1980, 1918 or 1924, 1954, maybe we would not be talking that long.
Why is that implementation?
The reason why the implementation are not or have not been able to be put in place is what he has said: vested interests.
Okay.
Land is at the center of the livelihood of this country. Our economy is land-based. Most of the resources that we utilize are land-based. Now, if you interfere with the economic ecosystem of those land-based resources, you interfere with vested interests. Remember, I said there are colonists who came. They invested heavily in land-based resources. We have tea factories, we have plantations, we have coffee plantations, we have areas that have been taken up for the railway line in Nairobi and many other parts. What these people see is that any attempt to reform is an attempt to take away that base from them, and it's billions of money involved. So people will try to frustrate those attempts in any way, either directly or indirectly. Otherwise, another problem has been lack of political will. For the first time, we can say we have political will, because the structures which have been put in place now are structures to implement, not to gather views and to ask the opinions of people. But I think we have had enough of the lamenting of what the problems are. These institutions which have been there and the reforms that have been there have simply said, now let's implement, because nobody had implemented before. But then challenges also coming. Funding, for instance. The land sector is a very, very expensive sector, because the procedures are long, they're tedious, and they're necessary. Otherwise, if I give you a title today, just right where you are here, you also doubt it with yourself. It has to go through several processes. Each process involves technical expertise, involves time and resources. And I think what has been lacking is that in the previous regimes, it was given lip service. Therefore, the political will was not as strong as now. Now we have a strong political will. I think during the swearing in of the president and deputy president, each of them really talked about giving support to the land reforms through the National Land Commission and all other institutions.
Well, I partially agree with the chairman, but not wholly. In terms of empirics, over the last 1 year, the previous parliament did a lot. They passed five land laws, almost in a record time, in 3-4 months towards the end of their term. The current parliament has not addressed any legislation on land at all. They haven't. There is a bill before Senate on community land bill, which on community land law, which also has challenges, because there is another parallel bill being developed by the ministry. The parliamentary committee on land, which is charged with oversight and the legislative agenda, has not followed the same track like the other parliaments. In terms of financial provisions, budgetary provisions, in terms of oversight, in terms of setting benchmarks and standards for tracking implementation of the policy and the constitution. For instance, there was a promise from when they took over government to implement automation of the land registries and land information management systems. We haven't seen subsequent resource allocation that would then make that a reality. We are 5 years into the formulation of the national land policy, and if you look at the resources allocated in the national land policy vis-a-vis the resources now given to the sector to implement, you will find a 95% deficit. So that tells you there will be a 95% failure in implementation. So I think we are not seeing systematic empirical steps that are focused into implementing the various aspects that are set out in the frameworks. The planning law, which is basic, which is key to the counties managing land effectively, and also the National Land Commission having oversight, has not since been revised. It's still the old one. So as much as the institutions would have experts and would want to move, some of these bottlenecks will keep them mark timing a bit. So that's the challenge. From our side, what we see at the point of consumer, at the citizen point, is almost frustration, because they're saying it looks like all this reform that is in the frameworks is not trickling down to us. So until it is felt by the citizen, then the political speeches will bring no meaning.
Yeah.
The citizen is saying, don't tell us about reforms. Let's feel it.
Show us.
We want to see it at the point of service.
So from where you see it, the political goodwill is neither here nor there.
It is speech. Every rally, every political address, every national address, every platform speaks very nicely about land reforms. But at the registry, at the survey office, at the planning office, really, the citizen has not seen much change. And ours, from the ones now asking those in government, is let the political speech be backed with tangible resourcing, with tangible action that shows actual shaking of hands. And even where there are no resources, let's see the goodwill going. Of course, there are attempts on titling, but sporadic attempts. But the systematic program set in the land policy, programmatic systems set on Schedule 4 of the Constitution, and the outcomes expected are not really being felt at the citizen level. I know it is 1 year, but 1 year could have, if you have 10 years, 1 year should have given us 10%. So at least the 10% would be comforting from the consumer side. I know the chairman and his institution have done 1 year.
The chairman insists there's a lot that's happening, but according to what we're hearing from
I agree, but at the framework, at the policy level, but the citizen, the basic steps, there are some things that even don't need a lot of money. Like
so it's all talk, sir, and no action. We're hearing, yes, the president is talking about it a lot.
Well, you also need to appreciate that even the creation of an enabling environment is also important in this. And when I say that there is enough political will, I meant that at least there is recognition of the structures that are supposed to carry out the reforms, and they'll be given a stage where they can perform their functions. However, as he rightly says, you need resources, and I've already explained that how expensive the land sector is. We need resources. The resources, it is true, have been scarce in this sector. We don't know whether it's out of design or out of just miscalculation. When we came in as a commission, we were given only 130 million for the first 4 months in the operation. Remember, we came in February last year. Between February and June, we had 130 million, because that is nothing. Between the next financial year, that is 2013-2014, we were awarded only 206 million. Really, that is something you cannot do much with. And between now and June, at least we have gotten an increment of 406 million. But if you look at the government these days gives money according to sectors. We went for the sectorial disbursement meeting for the ours is placed under the agriculture and land sector. The amount that was set aside for that was 55 billion for that sector. Surprisingly, the Ministry of Agriculture, whose functions have now been devolved to the county governments, were awarded 38 million out of 55. That leaves 17. The ministry was given 16 million. Ministry of Lands was given 16 billion. Ask me how much the Land Commission was given? 493 million. So you can see, I think...
So funding is a big issue, but also,
funding is a big issue.
as you talked about creating that environment for you to be able to do all this work, we all know and have been treated to the drama and the strained relations between your commission and the minister, the cabinet secretary, Charity Ngilu, and yourself as the head of the NLC.
Yes.
So that prolonged back and forth strained relations also in itself has played a huge role in taking attention, shifting attention from the work that needs to be done to sorting out the wars you've been having. What's going on? What's the problem?
It has not cost us a shilling to sort out the differences. What I was trying to emphasize is that, as he said, funding has been a problem. I will answer your question. I think that is the main interest. I know so when you have such discussions, I'll answer that. But I want to emphasize the fact that this is an expensive adventure or undertaking. There are so many programs which we can undertake without money, which we have done actually, like civic awareness we have done, like cleaning up the systems of access to services. We have attempted to do that. It doesn't require a lot of money. Solving disputes between persons over two parcels or one parcel of land, that one does not require a lot of money. So whatever does not require resources, we have attempted to do. We have put it in our annual report, which shall be read in, we have already presented to the President, which shall be read in Parliament. Now, but coming to the strained relationships, yes, there are strained relationships, and simply is because of the misinterpretation of the law. Remember, this is the only commission that has come that is taking over functions of an existing ministries. Other commissions were formed and they started from a clean plate. But when you come to the National Land Commission, is one that is trying was meant there to attempt to take over functions of many of the functions of the ministry. And there are ways which people have been doing these things in the ministry for almost 100 years. Therefore, people misinterpret the kind of what we call kind of takeover in a different way. The law is very clear like the Constitution. What are the functions of the Commission? If you look at the National Land Commission Act, there are functions that have been given. If you look at the Land Act, Land Registration Act, the ones he says that were passed in a record time, they have attempted to give the functions of it. Now, people misinterpret those laws in a different way. Also, some of the laws have got gray areas. For example, instead of saying register the land, it tells you advise on the registration of the land. At one point, it tells you ensure that everything is registered within 10 years. So now, people are taking advantage of those. When
you say people, you mean the cabinet secretary?
Like what exactly is the friction? What are the friction points between the National Land Commission?
I think I've explained that is not reading the law from the same.
Who is not
in terms of specifics?
I'm saying the ministry and us.
Okay.
As we're interpreting the law the way we think it should be interpreted, then they're interpreting the law in a different way.
Well, in fact, I sympathize with the National Land Commission to a great extent. So even as we give the view of a sector-wide approach, it is not to say that the people or the officers of the National Land Commission are not working. That is not true. They have been in existence for only 1 year. But we are addressing the leadership, the total leadership, because unless the ministry leadership works with the commission leadership jointly, then the citizen does not realize the benefits. We've seen very good attempts from the commission, at least to move with the little resources that they have had, and the performance is not an indictment on the commission, but the oversight between the commission and the ministry. There is a parliamentary committee and a Senate committee that has oversight roles on land, and it is that committee that has to ensure that the ministry keeps to its script and the commission keeps to its script and ensure respect. And whoever is infringing, it is that committee that ought to give a direction, policy direction, and where there are gaps in law, like he said, it's true, there are gray areas in some areas. They settle those gray areas. And in allocation of the resources, it is again Parliament that has the budgetary function. From the proposals from the Controller of Budget and the Treasury Secretary, go to Parliament, the Budget Committee of Parliament and the Lands Committee. So again, that's why I'm saying, and Parliament is made of politicians. What they do shows the political science. And we are yet to see that committee appreciate the legislative and the operational realities that are set out in the frameworks. The ministry, leadership of the ministry is appointed from somewhere. It doesn't just land. At least we know the commission was competitively sourced. It was also passed by Parliament and all that. But the leadership of the ministry also answers somewhere in the executive. Where it answers is where that issue of clarity is meant to come from. And they're told, look, this is one country, serving one people, serving with the same object of succeeding in moving forward in service delivery. And that's where we need to see that leadership, so that there is complementarity. Because if we continue that way, we will miss the point, because one point of the actions of the Commission and the actions of the ministry must complement. We have seen other areas that are not necessarily Commission related, but that come from the Public Service Commission. The appointment of substantive officers holding the the registrar's position. We saw an advert the other day, but why has it taken 1 year since the laws were passed? Why? Because the Commission part of it is suffering because of having fluidity of the officers they are dealing with.
But the biggest concern he's raising is that on one end they understand the law to say one thing as the NLC, the ministry reads the law to say something totally different. So it's a question of interpretation and what the law says, so that they all read from the same script. Because if they're reading from different scripts, then they're pulling different ends. So are you saying it's the work of the parliamentary committee to interpret what the law says, or where does the CIC or even the courts come into this conversation, so that there's a clarity on this is what the law says for both the Commission and the ministry?
I mean, there's no ambiguity. Sorry, Chairman.
Because he says there is ambiguity.
The areas of grey are very few. In terms of interpretation, you can choose to read your script to fit your circumstances, but the oversight bodies are there to say you are on the wrong. This is it. And those oversight bodies also, like I said, Parliament has the power of resources. If they also agree with the framework, they would allocate resources commensurate to the functions. And that would reduce the issue of who is doing what. Because if resources on land information systems go to the Commission, as the Constitution says, then we would be saying the Commission is not performing based on facts. They have resources, they have functions, but if you deny them resources, you have told them fail from the beginning.
Okay, I wanted to add that agreeing with what he has said, several attempts have been made to bring about this, bring to the fore this, what you are calling the friction. We have had meetings with the Parliament, committees of Parliament on land, and I think delegated legislation. We have had meetings with the Office of the President in terms of what should happen to each one of them. And we have had several attempts and several meetings. We have also had several attempts to have a retreat between the Commission, the Ministry, and CIC and Parliament. And actually in all our meetings, all the four bodies are present. Even the AGs has been coming there. What has been happening is that even after, as he says, pinpointing the roles and functions of each one of them, which is clearly spelled in law, people are not ready. Some people are not ready to implement as required. For example, some of the functions which are in the Constitution and in the Act are given to the Land Commission have not moved to the Land Commission, and resources go together with functions. So if those resources are given to those functions and they remain in the ministry and they have not come to the commission is really frustrated in that. For example, land adjudication and settlement is clearly a function of the National Land Commission according to the law. It is still anchored in the ministry. The National Land Management Information System, NLIMS, the automation is talking about, is fully supposed to be in the ministry. It has not moved. Therefore, if it is given funding from Treasury, the funding goes to where it is anchored.
So indeed, there is bureaucratic, structural bureaucratic challenges that are making the delivery of reforms, not even reforms, even making the delivery of services at the old style almost fail completely. We did a survey about a month ago across the registries. We were shocked to find that several registries, quite a number, more than 30% of the ones we visited, did not have stationery. Simple forms of application for land search, simple forms for lodging a boundary dispute, even papers to print title deeds, where there are no conflicts at all. And what were we told? We were told we wait for them from Nairobi. It is the ministry that procures from the government printer. And what has happened? We were told they procured late, and the government printer has been having a backlog. I mean, they have very many customers. So somebody missing the timing of procuring papers to offer services makes citizens keep coming there. Every day they make trips. They are told, wait, come next month, there will be papers. Yeah? You know, another place we found them selling, you have to photocopy a designated bureau where you photocopy paper to get a title search. I mean, this requires addressing, and we need not shy that and keep saying the law. No, it's not the law. The leadership of the ministry is not being accountable. It is also not being real in terms of respecting the frameworks that are there. And the executive has to view that and deal with it, to ensure that the promises they give to the citizens are met. We need not shy away from it and keep looking for scapegoats. Everyone has been in office, everyone knows their brief, and people have to run with their job and respect the parties they have to work with. I mean, no one will work in an island or work just the way they think. This is a country led by clarity. Yeah.
I think, while agreeing with him, I think the Constitution and the enabling laws have emphasized the need for consultation, participation of all the parties involved in this sector. The Ministry of Lands, the National Land Commission, the county governments, all of them are supposed to cooperate, consult, and participate in all these things. So we have very good rapport with the county governments, because we called them for several meetings. We had seminars with them where we explained what is supposed to be done under the law, and we have had very, very good relations. We have also had good relations with the committees of parliament, because we go and have meetings with them. We have also had meetings even with the some county commissioners. We have meetings, but now the main issue is how to integrate to integrate all these factors together with the ministry, so that the functions of each one are known and everybody follows their line. And I think there will be no collision, no need for us to collide on that.
Okay. So as we speak, are your relations okay? Very briefly, you and the cabinet secretary.
Well,
because you did fall out in public and in open. So how is that going?
Yeah, we did fall out in public. We tried to mend fences, and I think we came to a proper working relationship for some time. But every time one aspect comes in which should actually not be there, and You see, in a sector that is already emotive in itself, if you keep on also fighting in public and showing that you don't disagree, you are not adding value to that sector. As he says, it is the services which we are supposed to offer to the public. So what the Commission has opted to do is to carry on, run away with its mandate the way it is given by law. And anybody who is interfering with it is for the public to see.
Do you think, finally, before we take a short break and continue the discussion later, of course, ahead of the selection of the appointment of the cabinet secretaries, there were not to be politicians. Your ministry is one that has, or rather, the Ministry of Land has a politician leading it, and political interest is what both of you have cited as bringing a biggest challenge. Do you think it was very well, in your opinion, calculated to have a politician there who would protect those political interests, and that is perhaps what is continuing to entrench the issues faced in the ministry?
Well, I don't have to give an opinion on that. I think the Constitution was very clear. I think the letter and spirit of the Constitution was to delink politics from technocratic work like the one we are involved in. This is a sector that requires technical expertise, not political gymnastics. Therefore, it is up to the I can't say whether it is a calculated move or by accident.
But you'd have preferred someone who did not have
sure, yes, for sure, yes. If we had someone who is an expert in land, and there are many land economists in this country who would give leadership, or architects or engineers who are very well versed in this sector of land, maybe it would make a difference.
All right. So we'll continue to talk about more of the issues in the Ministry of Land when we
come back. This is the Morning Express. Do stay with us.
Welcome back to the show on this Thursday. It is the 6th of March 2014. We're glad you're watching. Before we went on the short break, we are all about the land issue in the country. And in the first half, we were talking about the strained relations. We touched on that between the National Land Commission and the Ministry of Land. That has definitely put a damper in reforms and in work in the Ministry of Lands. And of course, now question of the day, which is on your screen today. Right now, we're engaging with you on today. Do you think the government is doing enough to address land problems, ownership problems in the country? Do you think the government is doing enough to address land ownership problems in the country? Continue to share your views with us. Some of you have already tweeted in. We have Hambalesh, who says, when the head of state appears in any land report, then we don't even need to expect the land issues to be addressed. And Baha Masood Juma says, no, they issued title deeds at the coast, but the title deeds are yet to be registered. That's what you say. And we also have another one here. Nelson Namwonya, the government can handle the land issue when its officials own large parcels of land, not to mention some of the officials that we already know. And keep your comments coming, we'll sample them. And bring it back to you, gentlemen, Mwenda Mwakathimo, Mohamed Swazuri. Many people's biggest concerns is the issues that remain unresolved. So we've talked about the issues that first need to be settled, the in-house cleaning that needs to happen. But that said, there's still huge concerns over, public land that's still out there that needs to be gotten back, the issuance of title deeds. What is the way forward?
For the issue of public land, that is, we like to use the term graft. The law has mandated the Commission to look at investigate these parcels and ensure that they are returned to the public within I think 5 years or so. Now we have already started that. We have formed a committee in the commission under Commissioner Silas Kinoti, who is a surveyor, to look at that. And if you have been looking at the media, we have been publishing maybe up to 50 or 30 parcels in a week where we think these ones have been grabbed, and calling the owners, the people who purport to be the owners, to come and present their their certificates of documents to prove ownership. I think this is something that we started in November. We are now going on. I think even Friday tomorrow, another list will come out and to come and investigate. I think it is there's a long list of these parcels that we are following. Some of the parcels we are following, we don't even publicize, because there is a bunch that is brought and you just call the relevant body to come and explain. And we have managed to salvage quite a number of them. Of course, the trick is, once somebody is discovered, they simply go to court and ensure that things don't move. But I think on that one we have started the process, and we are I think we manage in that. The commission is mandated to hold inquiries about those, and what we have done is to call all the parties involved, and things work out very, very fast when everything is done in public and somebody is supposed to show proof of ownership. I think for the biggest test is that many of those parcels that have been grabbed do not have accompanying documents. They only have the final document to show that this property is ours. But if you ask them for the accompanying documents, because there is a deed plan, there is allotment letter is supposed to have been given, most of them are unaccompanied. Or if they are accompanied by those ones, we still have fake documents. We have interviewed experts, forensic experts, whom we are employing in the next 1 or 2 weeks to come and assist us in verifying those documents. Now, those issuance of title deeds, I think my colleague will talk about them, but you see, they will still follow the same process I'm saying. You cannot just issue a title deed just like that. There's a process. It's not an event. It's a process that has to start from application to allocation to planning to survey to registration and so on. It's something that we think should be followed in the correct manner. We also have a question of historical land injustices, which is one of the avenues of addressing the public land. Because public lands were taken. There's a period when it was endemic, from 1982 up to the late 1990s. That's the period when there's a lot of public land grabbing. And I think we have already formed a nationwide committee or task force on historical injustice, whose first purpose is to initiate the law. Within I think the next 1 year or 1 year or so, but we have, as a commission, we have given it only 4 months to initiate the law, and then thereafter start addressing historical injustices. That is where majority of the public lands went in.
Well, the question of at least attaining equity and giving more people access and security of land rights mainly will come through the land adjudication process. And as we earlier said, if that process is not being well managed, and the functions are not running between the commission and the office of the registrar properly, then even the new titles that are issued through that process will also fall into titles that have to be investigated. So we'll be creating a new problem. I appreciate that the commitment of government, of the executive, in issuing title deeds, and they have given targets, and that is very well, because I don't understand why it has not happened. In some places, the process of adjudication has taken 40 years. I have cases in example, and those adjudication sections ought to have been closed at least 39 years ago, so that people have titles. So I think they can prioritize and sequence where it has been there for 40 years and the processes have been done and there are few disputes, solve them, give titles, then they will be safe. Then in the new areas, follow the tracks and the processes well. Don't just go and issue title deeds at a ceremony. Have the planning well done, so that then even the public spaces are provided for, they are known, and the beneficiaries are known, then they are registered well, so that you avoid conflicts after that. And then after that, and the surveying is done in a clear manner, then after that, if there are any complaints, have them heard in a public manner and they are resolved transparently, then issue title deeds. So actually the function of issuing title deeds is more ceremonial towards the end. But if you start with title deeds, it's like you're doing a marathon. Instead of going to the start and running through, you go to the finish line at the beginning. Then you'll have missed the point. So I think that has been the problem, and that's why we are saying we need to see leadership appreciating the respect for processes and complementarity, and agreeing that you need each of these people in the process. In the planning bit, you will have to work with the counties. In the allotments, you have to have those committees that are talked about in the Land Act. In the other part of the adjudication and settlement, you have to deal with the commission. Then at the point of issuance of title deeds as a registration, it's through the commissioners also to deal with the ministry for the fact that the registrars are being administered under the ministry. So the full team must dance to a proper rhythm that is focused and that is targeted at ensuring that there is a proper tracks being followed. But if we just take a publicity approach and land in, say, Kisumu or somewhere, Migori or Mombasa,
yeah, like somebody's saying here,
and give title deeds, the next day people will be killing each other.
Not registered. Is that correct?
Well, most of them were not.
So it was just a publicity stunt to go give them out in Mombasa?
We can't say it was just a publicity.
Because if they're not registered, then...
As such, I think he has explained very well. It's a process. And
which did not happen.
It's a process. Some of the steps in the process did not happen in the way they should have happened. So as a result, we find that the commission has to come and rectify some of these. For example, there were shortcomings even in identifying the proper acreages. There were shortcomings even in identifying the proper allottees. You see, these were allocations which were done long time ago, and you know, Kenyans sell even allotment letters. So you find that the person who appears in the title deed is the person who was allocated 40 or 30 years ago. But this property has changed hands twice or thrice.
So were you involved in the process of those issuance at the coast by the president? Because then loopholes that perhaps should have been covered by you are still there. Were you involved as a commission? We
were not involved as a commission. We were involved in just recommending which ones should be given out. But the actual process of the actual act of processing the titles, we were not involved.
And I think you have to piece this together. If you have the registration or the registrars not, say, substantively appointed, so the advice coming on the registration front is a wobblish advice. If you have the adjudication process not properly advised and anchored through the commission, you also have now another weak point. If you have the survey function, which now seems to have gone to the counties, not synchronizing with the other arms, then you have a problem. If even the planning of the schemes not happening, but the commission has a legal advantage of having oversight of all those. If you have that missing, then certainly you will create new disputes, you create new conflicts instead of solving. But the final objective of giving land rights and certificates to the citizens is noble. All we are saying is, let's get it smart. I mean, let's get it smart this time round and give certificates that bring forth value and meaning to community. The other bit that I think you talked about, public land. You know, apart from the historical, there are new emerging challenges in public land management. And the law has envisaged, for instance, the allotment of public land to third parties, even for agricultural production, like the large-scale production that is happening in Galana and the Kwale side. It says the National Land Commission, is the one to do that because it has the manager of public land and management, even the allocation process. So if you see, like now the Ministry of Agriculture has advertised for private people to come and lease that land to produce food there without involving the land commission, not even involving, it's not their work. Even the land that they occupy, even the buildings they occupy, the Ministry of Agriculture and the other ministries even the statutory bodies, is under the National Land Commission in law. But if you see them moving with the National Irrigation Board and the ADC just doing business like the old times, then they miss the point. And you see gaps. The commission has, and they are employed, and they are experts, and they know how to do it. They are supposed even to assess what rents go on that land, even to whoever is leased. They have not assessed. So what rent will go there? They are supposed to oversee that planning to ensure ecological sensitive areas are protected. If they are not in, then already you know those areas will be affected. They are supposed to ensure the consultation between county governments and those other arms are there to ensure that there will be some economic benefits trickling to those governments, the communities, and also that the national government gets value. So that is not happening. So that process also will find challenges. These are new processes that are coming. So I think leadership in the sector is being challenged, and it has to be given in a manner or with people who appreciate each roles and who see the bigger side. Not the side shows are not helping. We must not color it in a different way.
So the big picture.
Let me explain what I need to add. As a commission, in June and July last year, we wrote to all public agencies and explained the mandate of the commission in as far as all their land is concerned. And we gave them a template to fill for us, to tell us how much they have, what is there, what has gone out, what is in dispute, what has been grabbed, and so on. And we stated in our memos that it is now the mandate of the National Land Commission to manage this land. We also had a retreat for some of those key leading agencies in Naivasha, KWS, KFS, and so on. But out of those more than 250 organizations, we received about only 80 of them. And therefore, I think people should appreciate that this is a new era, and that the management of land and administration of public land is in the hands of the commission. When we see these things happening and we are not consulted, even after having written to all these organizations, really tells you that we have a long way to go.
So the final question to the land question. What's the answer? Very quickly.
Well, land questions, many. The answer is, let's have leadership that has discipline, that knows that the matter of land management is about relationships, that respects all the players. Even if we make steps, one step at a time, and we know the ground we have covered is safe, we will cover full ground in due course. But if we do not carry respect of offices that are in existence and don't provide resources and don't communicate goodwill, it will continue to haunt us. So let's respect the offices we have created. Let's build relationships. The problems are complex and no one has a clear answer. But with that cooperation at county, at national, and at the regional, because some issues are regional levels, we can succeed. Finally, I think Parliament and Senate must move from the psych of every day and go to make their committees real perform the oversight functions and allocate resources with policy understanding, and also ensure that at the end of the day, the citizen receives, the citizen feels. Once the citizen says it is okay, we will be okay. Let the focus be the citizen.
Okay, I want to reiterate what I've said before, that this is a technical sector. It's a technical sector. You need to have been trained in this sector for you to operate. You need a trained surveyor. If I take somebody who's not a surveyor and put him there, nothing will happen. You need a trained planner. You need a trained registrar. Everybody there, cartographers and so on, all these are trained personnel, because ours is a technical job. It's not a politicking job. It's not a talking job. It's something that is technical, and you have to be there to have gotten the training and even the experience for you to do that. So we need technical leadership even at the top for us to be able to undertake these functions. It is not. I mean, if I'm taken to be the leader of a sector which I am not trained in, unless I study it for some time, I'll have challenges. This is a sector for which we cannot take chances. It is a technical sector because it affects each and every one of us. Today you have stepped on land before you came here, and after this you are going to sleep in a parcel of in a house which is on a parcel of land. So everybody is affected. It is for the good of this nation for us to have leadership, technical leadership in technical areas.
Right. Thank you very much, Mohammed Swazuri, Chair, National Land Commission. We appreciate you being with us this morning. And of course, Mwenda Makathimo, Executive Director, Land Development and Governance Institute. Asanteni sana. And we hope those issues, there will be answers to the land question. And of course, the challenges will be resolved, especially in the leadership and just ensuring there's convergence and coming together to work as a team for the good of the country. We're glad you're watching Morning Express. Take a short break now and we return with so much more today. Chris Hart will be with us in studio in our relationship segment, and we're talking about divorce. Hopefully we'll have our phone lines open for you to be part of that conversation. Don't go away. Stay with us right here on KTN.